Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Business as a Magical Practice. I'm here with a very special guest, my friend, my peer, someone who helps me a lot on all the things, Anna Marback. She is an existential kink coach, a certified hypnotherapist, and she does magic and personal growth and really supports you in leading your most magical life, whatever that means to you. Hello, Anna.
Hello.
Is there I was trying to pull a bio out of her before this call and she wouldn't have it. So is there anything on the tip of your tongue to share about who you are and what you do before we jump into Planetary Magic?
Yes, I just want to say I'm so passionate about the combination of personal growth and magic. And I think that's what really creates quick, powerful, easy, fun, pleasurable results. And I think similarly, it's like business, as I'm sure you know from this podcast, can really be a personal growth practice. So business plus magic can just be incredible together.
Oh, so good. Okay, so Anna is created and leads all of the Planetary Rituals and Monetize Your Magic, which is open for enrollment now until February 11th. So she's going to give us a super behind the scenes of what Planetary Magic actually is, get some definitions for you guys. And if this is oh wow, how have I missed this in my life? You can join Monetize Your Magic right now. So let's just dive right in, Anna. Can we just start by defining what magic is with a K or maybe without a K? However you like to spell
that. I know that's almost the first thing. Okay, how are we even spelling magic? I like magic without the K. I think of magic with the K. Yes, magic with the K is kind of the more like Wiccan or traditional, when you're doing very, very official magic. But actually my definition of magic is with the C, and it's more encompassing. And it's really any act that you do on purpose, in order to create a new result. And so that includes the ritual meditations that, you would be doing as part of Monetize Your Magic, which open up a huge new energy field for you, but we'll get into that later. Or it can even be, for example, a great act of magic can be I am choosing to create more space in my life by cleaning my kitchen. And, you'll notice that, especially because the thing is, you could just clean a kitchen and, you could do that, be like, oh, I have to clean my kitchen again. God, I don't want to do that. That's so stressful, annoying, whatever. And then the act really just creates more stress. So you don't really feel better afterwards, right? Whereas if you do it from a sense of, I am doing this on purpose to create more space in my life, to welcome in more abundance, more clarity, then that act actually does bring in more abundance and clarity. So it's, again, any action that you do on purpose to create a new result.
Oh, that's so good. And it's woman after a Virgo's heart right there. The magic of the mundane. Oh, beautiful. And so how did you find magic? Was this something that was always a part of your life, or was there a trigger moment? How'd that happen?
Yeah, definitely was not always a part of my life, because I went to a very intellectual school. I went to the University of Chicago for college, and I was actually part of the atheist group for a while. And then, but then I just honestly started, feeling really terrible mentally. And so I started exploring psychology. And then honestly, this was essentially by the Amazon recommendations list. You read enough psychology books, then they start to recommend personal growth, and then they start to recommend spirituality. And, and then they started to recommend magic books. And then essentially I was like, wait a minute, because obviously I read all the Harry Potter books as a kid, and I was like, magic is real, I'm in. And then, I spent a few years exploring magic. And then I really found, again, through so many years of self-experimentation of doing magic on my own, I really found the practices that were very effective for me and for other people in actually creating results in our lives.
Mm-hmm. That's good. So do you have any examples of, in that beginning part of finding magic, were there any specific results that you're like, oh fuck, magic is real?
Oh wow, yes. There are a few, yeah. Well, it was really I would just sometimes it's I would do a spell. Well, the first one that came to mind is that I did a spell, and it was really, I just did one spell. And in fact, it was an 11-day spell, and I did the first day of the spell. And it was that I really wanted to go to Beijing to visit some friends, and the tickets cost like $500 or something. So I was like 500. So I was manifesting $500 to buy that plane ticket. And then I swear to God, like 5 or 10 minutes after I did that spell, and again, it was the first day of an 11-day spell. My mom opened my bedroom door and was like, "Hey, let's buy your ticket." And I was like, "Oh, okay, you'll pay for it. Cool." Like, I was not expecting that. So that was for me just like, okay, results.
Oh, I love that so much. That makes me really happy. And one thing that I've heard from you consistently, just from our conversations, is I think we both share a belief that, like, even if I do 1% of this, or like the little amount that I'll do for this, it'll just work. Like, one day of an 11-day spell, totally fine.
That's such a good point. That's like a perfect example of that. Yeah. Because, well, yeah, I like to say, yeah, it's like, the thing is, currently, like right now, well, for example, even this conversation, it's like, if you're not doing a spell, like say you have a spell, and usually a spell it will often include a prayer, some kind of ritual text. It might include candles, it might include incense, it might include like all these ingredients, right? Or all these things you're supposed to do, quote unquote. And the thing is, like, usually people let that be a barrier between themselves and doing magic. They're like, well, I'm not going to do the magic until it's perfect. Like, I'm not going to do the magic until I have all the ingredients and I've ordered something that's going to take a month to arrive, and like, I'm not going to do the magic yet. And really what I believe in is do the magic now. Like, even if you're just saying the prayer and you don't have any ingredients, say the prayer now, because that will still be more magic than you've done previously.
Mm-hmm. Oh, love that. Okay. So let's take this a little deeper now. We got to magic. What then is planetary magic?
Yes. Well, planetary magic is really near and dear to my heart because there's a ton of different kinds of magic. Like, if you're familiar with magic, you know that. If you're not familiar, you know that there's Wiccan, there's hoodoo, there's voodoo, there's Greek magic. There's like magic really for pretty much every culture has magic, actually. And planetary magic, though, is so fantastic, I think, because really we all have access to the planets all the time. You think about your astrological chart, everyone has a birth chart with the planets in it. And that's because we're all affected by the planets. And really, the planets are affecting all of us equally all the time. We're always being affected by the planets. We're all already connected to the planets. You can see the planets too, literally the 7 days of the week. There's a day of the week for each planet. And really, the planets are already so part of our lives, and the energy of the planets is already so part of our lives that planetary magic is just very easily accessible for every single person on Earth. Mm-hmm. And then, each planet also corresponds to an area of life. And the 7 planets really cover all areas of life. Like, you could think of any topic, like you could give me any topic in the world and I could tell you that it's one of the 7 planets, and you could really do magic for literally anything in your life using the 7 planets.
Mm-hmm. And just to slow down and pull out something that you said with the days of the week, like I don't remember if we've done a planetary magic episode on this podcast. We might have. I don't remember. This is my Gemini rising in action of like, could have happened, maybe not. So Monday, like, you see the moon in Monday. Tuesday, if you look at different languages, you can see how there's Mars in there. Like Tears Day, right?
Tears Day, yep.
Tears is a god and a different whatever. Wednesday, if you look at like French and Spanish, you can see Mercury in the name of it. Thursday, Thor's Day, Jupiter. Friday, it's different languages that you see Venus in there, right? Like French and Spanish.
Yep, it's Norse. It's like, well, it's in English, it's like the Norse language, so it's Freya's day. So it's Venus. Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm.
And then we have Saturday, pretty obvious, and Sunday, pretty obvious. So like, just like, this was actually a part of the English language because it used to be so integral to our culture, right? Yeah, that's just mind-blowing. Like, completely disconnected that. And like the fact that something directly in front of you, the days of the week, are named after the planets, and we're so disconnected in our current reality from the planets that it's just, I don't know. It's right in front of you. Magic is right in front of you, you guys.
That's so funny. It's like if you were to say to like a random person, like, do you believe in magic? They'd be like, no, what are you talking about? But then I often find if you talk to people a little longer, I'm like, well, have you had any weird experiences? I mean, even my own dad is like, yeah, well, I knew that my grandfather had died before anybody told me. And I was like, yeah, that's pretty supernatural, Or he was like, that the first house we lived in was haunted. I'm like, I know it was. I used to see things there, or like, I mean, like everyone has those things. Or the fact that a lot of buildings aren't built with a level 13. Like there's literally no 13 button on the elevator, right? Yeah. It's like superstition and magic are actually really built into reality already. We just usually don't notice it.
What do you think the difference is between superstition and magic?
Oh, I don't think there's a difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's like a negative connotation to superstition, or it's like usually associated with negative things, like knock on wood or else you're going to get bad luck, or not the level 13 because that's bad luck.
Well, this is about the role of taboo, which is something I think is really interesting. So taboo, in different cultures, different things are taboo, or, you're not allowed to experience them or do them for some reason, right? Because it'd be bad or bad luck. And magic is actually very related to taboo. And actually doing things that are taboo, that, is magical. Like that's why, for example, black cats are associated with both bad luck and with witches, because actually taboo is the power of the secret, like the power of the unknowable, the power of the untouchable. And when you break through those barriers, like when you're willing to do something that other people aren't willing to do, that's magic. And so, for example, like that's why one of the traditional things, this is kind of a quote unquote black magic thing. I don't really believe in black magic, by the way, but like one of the traditional like witch initiations is to say the Lord's Prayer backwards. I know, right? It's like super taboo, but you're also like, what's the big deal, right? Like in a way you're like, why is that such a big deal? But even the idea of doing that is kind of like thrilling and exciting. And it's not even that it would do anything, right? It's not that it's going to conjure the devil or like whatever. It's really that doing that, being willing to do something taboo, being willing to do something you weren't willing to do before, that's magic,
Okay, and here's the parallel to business, because like usually, or from my experience, this doesn't necessarily have to be the case, but your willingness to do the uncomfortable thing or feel the uncomfortable feeling is usually the thing that unlocks your next level of success in business, right?
Yes, precisely. That's it exactly. Yeah. It's really about like, where's the energy being held? And it's the same in personal development too, like being willing to face the parts of yourself that you weren't willing to face before. And yeah, in business, being willing to do the things that you weren't willing to do before. And same within magic. It's really all magic. It all releases new energy into your life and creates new reality.
Oh, so good. So, where did you start off with Planetary Magic? Like who did you work with? What did you do? And what did it unlock?
Well, okay, so I did something a little crazy that I don't necessarily recommend. Although again, that's like kind of a lot of magicians, to be honest, like are just kind of people who really take pleasure in doing intense new things. And so I'm a really big fan of Jason Miller. He's a wonderful magician, or he's, he calls himself the sorcerer. And he has this book called I think it's called Advanced Planetary Magic, and it includes these 49 different planetary magic calls, because actually, like this is getting a little, again, into the advanced work, you can work with the planets, and then you can also work with two planets together. And that actually makes, a different kind of energy. And so he called these 49 prayers, the 49 calls. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to perform them all in 1 week, So what you do is like you take the planetary day. So like Monday, that's moon day, like Sam said. And then you take the planetary hour, and, you can look those up online. You just Google planetary hours. They're really easy to find. And, so like the moon one is like the moon day at the moon hour. Then, the moon Mars one is like the moon day at the Mars hour. And so, yes, I did 7 planetary rituals a day for 1 week.
Wait, okay, so your entrance into Planetary Magic was with Advanced Planetary Magic book?
Yeah, actually. I know. I mean, like I really just dove in. I mean, to be fair, actually, now that we're saying this, probably my absolute first book was Jason Miller has a book called Financial Sorcery. And that's all, it's entirely Jupiter magic.
Yeah.
Yep. And I highly recommend that book because Jupiter, you know, definitely also is in Monetize Your Magic because Jupiter is so amazing for expansion, like expanding the electricity in your body. And I actually started doing, I don't remember the timeline of this, if I did this before or after, but I started doing a lot of Jupiter magic because I realized that as actually Jupiter magic is fantastic for sensitive people, you know, and I assume that's definitely some people listening to this podcast because it really lets you hold way more energy. Because often when you're sensitive, you kind of want to close off to energy. And in business, you really need to be open to experiencing more money moving through you, experiencing connecting with a lot more people, experiencing being a lot more visible. And I think Jupiter really helps with that.
Okay, wait, let's go back. Love that. Like, let's go back to what happened after your week of Planetary Magic. I'm so curious.
So actually that week was the same week that I was applying for the Existential Kink coach training program.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And it wasn't, when I was doing the planetary calls, I was really just doing them because I just loved magic. So I was just doing them to connect with the energy of the planets. I mean, the prayers themselves do have intentions, but I didn't actually have an intention for the magic other than to connect with the energy, to really, get used to connecting to planetary energy. But then I did end up being accepted into the coach training program. And that definitely was a very life-changing program in many ways for me, where I really went through so much personal transformation. And I met with so many people who, finally were just like me and were into what I was into. Yeah. So yeah, it was just like a really amazing way to start that phase of my life.
Oh, I love that. And then do you have any examples of your clients using planetary magic?
Yes, actually. Well, so I teach a course called Planetary Magic for sensitive people. So I've taken multiple people through like a week. Like what we do in that course is we do 1 week with each planet, and we do actually quite short rituals. It's like a short daily ritual, and then like a big ritual at the end. And yeah, I have clients who it was so interesting actually seeing how it happened with the planets, because again, the planets are very themed. Yeah. So I had a client who during the moon week found out she was pregnant, which is very like mother magic. And then also during the Mercury week received, I believe, $15,000, and that's like Mercury's like moving money, what else? I mean, yeah, definitely people who received money during the Mercury week, because again, Mercury is that money movement. Working too with Saturn and Saturn receiving more discipline, like for example, feeling creatively blocked, and then all of a sudden after working with Saturn being able to just like write a song that felt like, she wants to be a pop star. So like all of a sudden writing a song that felt really inspired, it was really good. And like, when she played it for other people, they were like, this is a fantastic song. So yeah, those are some specific results.
Yeah, wait, I mean, this might be useful to people. Like, let's actually just go through the 7 planets and say what they're associated with, and maybe they'll understand why we're laughing about birth and the moon. What's the best order? Okay, we'll just start with the moon because that's what we're talking. Let's go by days of the week. There we go.
I think days of the week. Yep.
So the moon is associated, and you usually see, like, if you think of planets, you see it in most ancient religions associated with gods and goddesses. So often if you learn like the Greek pantheon in school, then you'll like the things associated with those gods and goddesses are actually taken from the energies of the planets. So let's start with the moon. Go ahead.
The moon. Yes, I often do the Roman and Greek gods, and you can hear that in the Planetary Magic Rituals and Monetize Your Magic. And so the moon is really the mother. The moon is emotion. The moon is the inner outer flow. You think about the tide, and you think about also the waning and the waxing moon. The moon's also manifesting and bringing things into fruition. And, that's both Luna and Selene. So that's the Roman and Greek names. Then should I continue?
Yes, you can just continue. I don't need to.
Perfect. Yeah, I can keep going. And then, we have Tuesday, the same sign, and that's Mars. And Mars is really, and by the way, the moon's very feminine, and then Mars is very masculine, aggression, you know, war, but also I really like to say Mars is strategy too. So often I like to think of calling a Mars, not just for calling it aggression, though a lot of people need more aggression, and it's awesome to call on Mars for that like take action energy. But Mars is also for strategy. Exactly, drive and motivation, yes. Yeah, then you can also do strategy and planning if you like want to plan out how you're going to move forward. You want to take right action, like that's Mars as well. And then you have Woden's Day, which is Odin in Norse mythology, and that's Wednesday, and that is Mercury or Hermes in Greek. Oh, and by the way, it's Aries for Mars. And then so Mercury or Hermes in Greek for Mercury. And Mercury is really about fast movement. And then also, you know, maybe a little bit of shadowy side, gambling, trickster energy, but also writing, communication. And Mercury is one of those ones that's really great for, you know, online business owners, especially because Mercury is all about the circulation. Like Mercury is also about technology, internet, you know, so really Mercury is like social media. Mercury is like that fast communication to different people. You know, Mercury is also the fast movement of money. So if you want to get money moving in your life, that's what Mercury does.
And like good luck too, right? And
yes,
I once heard an astrologer say that it's a good idea for everyone in society, whether or not you have an online business, is to be working with Mercury, just because to balance it out because of the internet, because of like this age of technology, or we're like now beyond the age of technology, that it's kind of we're overloaded with that. So we need to like extra take care of our nervous system, which Mercury rules, and really pay attention to those things because we're out of balance as a society that's like over Mercuried out.
Oh, that's such an interesting way of putting it. I mean, yeah, like, right, we all have our smartphones. I mean, really all banking's done online. And I was actually talking with my mom about cryptocurrency the other day, which is not something I ever thought my mom would be interested in. So that was fun. But, you know, cryptocurrency is so Mercury. And the fact that most of our currencies aren't really based on anything physical anymore, like pretty much all currency and all money are Mercury based now, right? They're all just movement and energy. So yeah, like Mercury is just necessity for anybody. I totally agree.
One of the top crypto exchanges is called Gemini. And when I was like, I'm like just starting to get into crypto as of a few months ago. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, someone knows something.
Totally.
Okay, anyways, Jupiter. Let's hear Jupiter.
Jupiter is just like one of my personal favorites, to be honest. Like I did daily Jupiter magic for months. I'm just a huge Jupiter fan. I used to have like a big Jupiter altar. And Jupiter is, you know, it's that king energy. Jupiter's all about expansion, sovereignty. Like, what is your realm? What is your kingdom? Or, you know, your queendom, your realm. What are you ruling? Where do you want to really have your influence felt? Jupiter's also, you know, like I said, that lightning. So it's like about that lightning power. You know, it's like, how much can you hold? How much can you give? How much can you receive? It's also like this generosity and this very magnificent energy.
It's a good one for business for all of us.
Definitely. If you want to get like that wealth roll again. Oh yeah, I also had another client who worked with Jupiter, and then she had so much money coming in to her nonprofit that she actually stopped working with Jupiter. She was like, I can't actually, because the thing is Jupiter will bring you tons of growth. Right? Because I mean that's what Jupiter does. Jupiter can bring you tons of growth, but you also need to be able to handle that. Yeah. You can actually ask Jupiter to do that, by the way, but you know, Jupiter will bring the results, and then yeah, you might actually be like, oh, actually I need a moment to catch up and to like really settle in with this. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good. Yeah, the first planet I worked with was Jupiter, and that was in my first introduction to any magic or planetary magic. It was Planetary Magic, and that was with Carolyn Elliott's influence course. It was like just jumped right in, and it started with Jupiter, and it was such a beautiful, I guess, introduction to it all. I'm really glad I went that route versus like a lot of people see magic as like you can just like look up spells online and do like these one-off spells, but if you can actually bring magic into a context and make it threaded in with actual your actual goals versus like, I'm just going to do a one-off spell and like see what happens. I feel like it's almost that's almost more superficial and versus having a more strategic approach to it. But yeah, Jupiter helped me a lot. I don't work with him anymore. Out of laziness, I think. But yeah, I have a soft spot for Jupiter because he was my first.
I mean, Jupiter, well, what I often recommend too is that if people are doing Jupiter magic, they do a little Saturn magic, just like a little bit, but like, because Jupiter, like, for example, again, like this client, like, yes, it brought in a lot of money, but then she was like, okay, now I have to have the systems. Like, that's when you have to have like the systems and the discipline to deal with it. And that's what Saturn will do.
You know what's funny? So Jupiter just went into Pisces, and people who are either Jupiterian or like super Pisces, I can see them in my life getting really activated in a positive way from that. And one of them is my husband, and he's had a nonprofit for years and hasn't really done much with it. Like, hasn't asked for donations or anything. He's just kind of like going about the work and not making profit because he's in a nonprofit life. But since Jupiter's been in Pisces, there's been a ridiculous like onslaught of donations into his nonprofit, and like it has triggered some Saturnian things where like, oh, we're late on these tax forms, and like getting notifications around that and being like, it because the Jupiter is getting activated, the Saturn's getting activated as well. So it's interesting that you say that, because that's been on my mind.
Yep, that's absolutely true. That's exactly what's going to happen. It's just because they're actually such a natural pair together. Some people are like, oh no, Saturn. We'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, it's like, really, Saturn is a great pair with Jupiter because Jupiter expands everything, including your taxes. You make more income, you got to pay more taxes. But it's part of the realm, right? It's part of government, and that's Jupiter ruled.
Yeah, so good. Okay, so our next one is Venus.
Venus, another deep favorite of mine. I do Venus magic still literally every day and have for probably a couple years, actually.
What does that look like? What does your daily Venus magic look like?
It's fairly simple, but it's very effective. So what I do is first of all, I deliberately lean into pleasure. Mm-hmm. Again, that's what makes anything a magical act, because I could just take a bath and it would just be a way to get clean, right? Or I can take a bath knowing in my mind that I am honoring Venus, Aphrodite, as I take this bath. Sometimes I will even imagine that I am in a temple, like a Venus Aphrodite style temple. And then as I wash my face with, like creams that feel fabulous to me or whatever, I'll say, hail Venus, hail Aphrodite, hail Venus, hail Aphrodite. Or as I put on makeup, I'm thinking, hail Venus, hail Aphrodite. And I'm imagining sympathy being created between me and Venus Aphrodite. And I'm also imagining and like asking Venus Aphrodite to create attraction and, convivial feeling between me and other people.
Oh, I love that. Is there a specific reason Venus is the one that you do daily practices with?
It's really that, well, first of all, I do work in a client-facing job, so I like to feel good. I find that there's a big difference between when I work with Venus Aphrodite and, I'm really coming from a very heart-centered place versus when I don't, and maybe I'm feeling a little tense or I'm kind of like focused on something else. I mean, I really work with Venus Aphrodite because, well, I am Venus ruled. That's my dominant planet. You can actually look this up online, your dominant planet. My dominant planet's Venus. But then also, and I'm also a Taurus ascendant, so I'm also ruled by Venus in that way. And I also work with Venus Aphrodite, though, because I love that feeling of love. I just love feeling relaxed and heart-centered and in my pleasure. And so, you can choose a planet to work with daily or on a regular basis, depending on how you want to feel.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for indulging me. So anyways, tell everyone about, I guess we should have like explained what Venus was before.
We should have, do that a little backwards. But that's how Venus goes. Like, she rolls on her time and her pleasure.
Well, it's funny, like this conversation, because we're both manifestors in human design, and I feel like we're both talking so fast that like people are gonna have to listen at like half speed, but it's fine. I'm enjoying it.
I am a really fast talker. Honestly, I've been told to like slow down, but I enjoy it.
They're listening on a podcast app where they can listen at half speed if they need.
Perfect. So yes, Venus, Aphrodite. And I know I'm like, well, you know, it's like I'm even wearing like this pink scarf, right? It's like I love this, you know, it's like the pink scarf is kind of that energy. And I have these red walls. Anyway, so Venus, Aphrodite, really about the pleasure, love, eroticism, sex, beauty, luxury. You know, it's like, you know, honestly, you can work with any planet for money magic and for business magic. And for Venus, it's like that high end kind of luxury feel. Or it's also, you know, relationship. It's your relationship with anybody. And again, it can be romantic, and it can also be friendship, family, client relationships. Anytime you want to form a relationship, anytime you want to like attract in things, that's Venus.
Mm-hmm. So good. Okay. We're not even close to that. I was about to be like, last one, Saturn, but that's not true. Saturn
Saturn sex, everyone's favorite. I think Saturn should be everyone's favorite. Saturn is amazing, but I actually really started my deeper work because I really did like deeper work with most of the planets, but Saturn was really the planet I worked with last because everyone's always like Saturn's so scary, or like Saturn is this really heavy energy. And what I've honestly found working with Saturn is that actually Saturn's really about foundations. You know, like I think other planets, like maybe, you know, even Jupiter to a certain extent will create castles in the sky. You know, it's like dream it out. I think Jupiter actually manifests a lot of it too, but still it's like the dream of the castle in the sky. And Saturn builds the foundation underneath that castle. Like Saturn is your foundations, Saturn's your boundaries, Saturn's restriction. And you know, you can think of restriction in a negative way, but I think restriction can also be positive. Like get rid of time wasters, get rid of, you know, taxes, get rid of money wasters, you know, really restricting the things that you don't want restricted. And as you know, one of my clients once put it, like she also was scared to work with Saturn. And then she was like, you know, I'm actually thankful. Like it's actually good to have my skin as a boundary between me and the rest of the world. You know, like we actually need our skin to hold in our organs and to hold our bodies in. Like some 3D reality things are good. Like some restrictions are good. So it's really about, you know, embracing restriction as something that makes reality possible.
Yeah. And one of the things I love so much about planetary magic is because there's so much metaphor in it, and it's so we can see how much our culture is actually steeped in it and how much it creates it, because so we have these 7 planets that are visible, and that's why the most ancient traditions work with only 7 of the planets, is because there's only 7 visible planets, and the outermost one is Saturn. So he was considered to be the barrier between reality and not reality. So he's like, you see him as the reaper or time, or all of these things that are this separation between 3D reality and beyond. And I don't know where I was going with that, but I don't know where I was going with that. I love planetary magic because of all of the metaphors in it, essentially. And you can see all of these different layers of, it's not just about these deities, or it's not just about reality, but it's also linked with how we actually were able to see it working in the sky, and the past in our ancient civilization where there was no electricity. We were outside at night staring at the stars and creating stories, and shamans were connecting in with the energy of these things that were moving relatively independent of the rest of the cosmos, of the stars moving. So they created stories around it, but there's truth in those stories. Okay, that's where I was going with it. Got there.
No, I totally agree. I think that's so interesting too. Well, it's like Mercury's the fast moving god, and you know, when you connect in the energy of Mercury, you're like, absolutely. And at the same time, Mercury literally moves quickly across the sky. That's the reason. Or, you know, the moon literally increases, you know, like pregnancy. That's why we, you know, associate the moon with motherhood. So I think that is so interesting. And, you know, one of my favorite things that I read a while ago is that, you know, it said something like the ancients, you know, they didn't used to do planetary magic where they did all these rituals and like they, you know, had these spells that they used. They would just look at a planet and just be like, just look at it for a while and be like, Venus, I feel sympathy with you. Give me love. And that would be it. That would be the spell. And I'm like, that's absolutely a spell.
Yeah. Oh, that's really good. And with the whole metaphor side of it, reminder that if you're, as I like speak it, I'm like, oh, we've just made up these stories, but it's like, It's actually not. The more that you can lean into the metaphor that is magic, of like when you start looking at planetary correspondences of like these herbs and these colors and these gemstones are associated with these planets. And you're like, okay, these are just random things, but there's metaphor connected with all of it. And when you realize that metaphor is directly related to synchronicity, and most of us, we want more synchronicity in our life because it's this indicator of magic, then like so much can be unlocked. And okay, if I lean more into the metaphor and I feed more into the metaphor that is all of life and like all of this magic, we can actually create more synchronicity and magic within our lives.
Yes, absolutely. It's like when you're engaging with magic, I mean, you could choose not to engage with magic and that's your choice. I think that'd be a more boring life, in my opinion. You choose not to. Or you can choose to engage with magic. And it's really, I think it's about choosing your meaning. Like, you can choose to live a magical life. You can choose that, engaging in these colors and engaging in these spells and engaging in these herbs and crystals means you're connecting to the planet. Yeah. And then when you choose that, it does mean that, and it doesn't mean it even just because it's written down on a piece of paper. It means it because you chose that meaning. And then you'll find that when you really engage with those meanings, that they engage with you back. And that's when the synchronicity gets pulled in. And that's when the miracles start to happen. And that's when things happen more easily than you could have ever imagined. And, I was actually just talking to a friend and I was like, people can be successful without magic. But I'm like, but I wouldn't want to be. Like, I love being successful with magic. I love doing magic because I enjoy it, because it brings pleasure, and because I think it brings a sense of ease and wonder that you wouldn't get otherwise.
Yeah. And it's almost like if you didn't have a cell phone, it doesn't mean that people have the ability to talk with each other via cell phone, via the cell towers and all of that. And when you actually like, okay, I'm going to go buy a phone and I'm going to start telling people my number, then suddenly they're able to text you and call you to that number. And it's just that choice that you made to buy the phone. Okay, if you make the choice to start leaning into metaphor and synchronicity, then the universe realizes, oh, I can talk back to you that way. So you're like, the lines are already there. It's just whether or not you're opening up your communication with them.
I love that. That's the perfect way to put it. Yes.
How do we get here? Okay, so we still have sun. We still have sun.
I know. And the sun is really important, obviously.
Oh, it is, absolutely.
So the sun is about sovereignty too, but in a bit of a different way than Jupiter, because Jupiter is about the realm, right? But sun's about personal sovereignty. And really the sun's about shining out. The heart is in many ways the center of the sun. And so it's really about your personal power. The sun is also associated with health and vitality, and it's about shining out, being visible and letting everyone see you and be attracted to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm like, there's something about the sun that I feel like it's almost fundamental for people to work with, but we want to just skip over it because it is.
I mean, it's like in Western astrology, it's the main part of the chart. And I think, it's like when we look to the charts, like we can see, it's like, yes, that's an important part of planetary magic. And again, too, for me, like I've really done so much of my magic with the sun as the heart center. And because, the heart center is really where we can hold a lot of our energy and electricity, right? The heart has a literal electrical field. So if you think of your heart as a sun and the sun shining out and the sun can contain this incredible amount of energy, then that's a really great way to continue to grow your energy and to continue to attract people from a really authentic place.
Oh, I love that. So inside of Monetize Your Magic, you created 7 planetary rituals, one for each of the planets that we just went through. What is a planetary ritual?
Yes. So first of all, I want to make it as easy as possible for everyone. Yeah. So how I like to say is, I did the research, I did the work. All you have to do is relax and listen, And when you get to these lessons, you just relax and listen. And you really let the energy just wash over your body. And what the rituals are, I think, they include like a meditation aspect. So it's a place where you're really imagining. And the thing is, the imagination is actually really connected to magic. it's really connected to the realm of magic and to the realm of the possible, right? So you imagine that you're connecting to the energy, you start to feel that energy moving through the body. And then I say a ritual text. And these are very ancient ritual texts that have been preserved for a couple thousand years because they're effective, because they are so connected to the energy of the planet, and because they really call upon the traits of the planet, you know, essentially. Like, actually, I have to say, another one of my great planetary magic teachers, his name is Jack Grail, and he teaches this really wonderful class on this ancient set of texts called the Greek Magical Papyri. And what Jack Grail taught me is that, you know, really, when you're calling out a planet, you just want to call it in as many ways as possible. So, you know, it's like, for example, let's say I saw Sam at a party, like across the room, and I was like, hey, Sam. I mean, maybe Sam would turn her head, maybe she wouldn't, right? I mean, it's like, and then if I was like, hey, Sam Garcia, and then if I was like, hey, Sam Garcia, who has the Magic Business as a Magical Practice podcast, you know, it's like each detail you add, you're like, oh, I'm that Sam, right? So, you know, like, that's what we're doing with the planets. We're not just like, hey, Venus, we're like, oh, hey, Venus, who was born in the sea in Cyprus, who also loves pleasure and luxury. Then Venus is like, oh, yep, that's me, and comes down to you, you know? And that's what we're really doing in these rituals, is we're calling upon the planets, using their traits. We're being like, we understand you, we love you and appreciate you, you're already in our lives, which, you know, we know because the planets are already always influencing us through our birth charts. And we're like, we want more of you. We want you to help us in these ways. Thank you so much. And then we use mantras. And mantras, you know, of course, everyone's heard of mantras. Mantras are a really traditional way to connect with different powers. And then we use mantras to continue to bring that power to us.
And so all of them are associated with, we have 7 lessons within Monetize Your Magic, and each of them are paired intentionally with lessons and seated with the lessons in there. So like extra power in that. So really excited for you guys to tune into that. And Anna, it was so good to have you on. I definitely want to have you back because this was really, really fun. But where can people find you? How can they work with you?
Yes. So you can find me on my Instagram account. I am AB Marback. That's ABMARBACK. And you can work with me. Like I said, I'm a certified hypnotherapist, so you can do hypnotherapy with me. I think that's a certain kind of magic. And I'm also teaching a course called More, which is about living your biggest life. And it's 1 year of magical practices and self-growth practices.
Oh, that's fun. And I mean, I just hired Anna to work with for her to help me with a bunch of magical rituals around opening up a property for us to purchase on Maui. So I think that's something you do too. Or did I get a special thing?
I know, I'm just starting really because Sam inspired me. I'm also doing magical consultations where I help people form long-term magical rituals to create their dreams.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited. I start today. It's Thursday. I'll keep you guys posted. It's like a full-on set of however many days of rituals that I'm going to do that are customized for my goal of purchasing this one property on Maui and getting all the permitting in place and all the loan processes in place and blah, blah, blah. So I'll keep you guys posted. And that was all Anna's magic, activating my magic. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Monetize Your Magic is open now. It's the only online business program of its kind that combines expert guidance with concrete tools and strategies to approach your marketing, pricing, sales, and getting clients, plus a hefty amount of planetary magic to grow your business. So you can build a profitable business of your dreams, the one that you actually want, the one that maybe you've been just scraping by or just making enough to cover expenses, and you really want to up level to having more than enough and having overflow and being able to upgrade your lifestyle to one that actually is pleasurable to you. So it's open now. Check out the link in the show notes or thedirtyalchemy.com/MYM and come on in. We want you here. And so that closes February 11th. Anna is, of course, featured in there. And on that note, do you have any final words of wisdom for us, Anna?
I just want to say Monetize Your Magic is amazing. And again, just in business as in magic, it's all about taking that first step and just continuing to take action, even when it's uncomfortable. And also letting it be fun too. Just let yourself enjoy it, let yourself relax, and let yourself just express your biggest, best, most pleasurable self.
Love it. Okay. Talk to you next week, guys. Aloha.